Today's guest is the beautiful Emma. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Emma is a spiritual practitioner, she's a sound healer, and she's here today to help us tune into the frequency of the mother line. So when I messaged you on Instagram about what we're going to talk about, you mentioned let's talk about the mother line. And for me, that was actually the first time I heard of that. Generally, I'd never heard of that before.
Okay.
So for me, I'm just thinking about people that haven't heard of the mother line. What is the mother line? So if you could just share your knowledge, what the mother line is.
Yeah. So as women, we come from a lineage of women. So it's really that. It's the grandmother, the great grandmother, the great great grandmother, and it's that journey through the lineage to where we are now, and that carries with it through our DNA. Obviously, we're carrying the mother and the father DNA, but just from being in perimenopause and starting to go into my menopausal years, that's what's taken me deeper into that research. Is often there's a frequency, or the experiences and the traumas, and as well as the gifts and the talents of our mother line, are passed down through the mitochondrial DNA. So when we think about the mother line, we can see things skipping generations, or when you start to do meditations on that, you can see patterns or certain beliefs or ways of being that that you carry from your mother, from your grandmother, that actually then you can pass on to your children, if you have children. So when I think about the mother line, what taught me really into it is when I entered into perimenopause, I started to kind of feel like a bit crazy and like what's happening and what's going on, and there was a lot of sadness and a lot of grief. And really what I then started to explore was my grandma's story on my mother's side, because she started coming to me in visions saying it's not all your pain, it's not all your suffering. So there was this element of unprocessed trauma. And I think in this era in time, because we are in this huge shift of consciousness, in this shift of eras, there's a lot of these things coming up now for healing and clearing, because we're clearing the templates to be able to move into a new frequency on the planet. And that's coming through with the consciousness of these times. So yeah, that's for me, the mother line is just this awareness of what we carry, because me now with my eggs in my belly, if you think about that on a level, it's like I was an egg in my mum's tummy in my grandma's belly.
Tripping.
So it's wow. I did a women fertility massage course about 4 or 5 years ago, and I had an experience while I was on the couch of this really kind of aggressive energy, and I was like, what is this? And what I had was a vision of a man, and what I realised at the time was it was my grandfather, who was very abusive to my grandma. So she'd had a really horrendous marriage, but it was the energy. So even as an egg, this is what I started to understand, was like we carry the vibration, we can carry trauma just because of the imprint. So it's physical, but emotion. We've got our physical body, emotional, mental, spiritual bodies. So that egg, wherever that trauma is, if it's in the emotional body, the mental body, or spiritually, you've brought it with you. It's there, it's imprinted. And if you think of a cell that's sort of round and healthy, all these imprints kind of distort the cell. So that's how we carry the trauma. It's locked into our trauma, which is why sound is so powerful, because sound comes as a frequency and it can just help to ease and open and restore the cells back to their vitality, back to their original blueprint.
Wow, that is amazing.
There's a lot in it, it's deep.
Wow, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, let's just touch on the research a little bit, because for me, coming from a Western background, in terms of research and the scientific, data, that's really piques my interest. So what kind of research did you find along your journey that really stood out for you?
It's been more experiential.
Okay.
It's the feeling sense in my body, and then I've, attended different workshops and different courses that always bring it back to being in sort of perimenopause, like, okay, so we've all got an inner critic, right? So seeing these aspects of self, but where do these voices come from? What are these whisperings? And when you sort of get into that, where in the lineage has this been passed down, that you're not good enough, that there's shame, that there's betrayal, whatever the wounds are you're carrying, often it's coming from a place that's not you. When we get back to our core essence, we've got this vitality with this vital spark of consciousness, but the imprints and the layers can come through the lineage. So there's a lot of the pattern clearing I had to do was not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. And then you get into the sister wound and the witch wound, like actually where in other lifetimes have you been the one to stand up and sing your song and speak the truth, and you've been silenced, or you've been burnt at the stake. Or so as women often, and maybe there's these wounds, these imprints that we carry collectively. And then the sisterhood wound, where at that point in time when sisters were turned against each other because you were going to be burnt at the stake or drowned as a witch, then we learned not to trust other feminines or to be in competition with them. And so there's all these wounds that can play out, and when we become conscious, we start to feel jealous and competitive and da-da-da-da. It's like, and it's with no judgment. It's like, it's just bringing it back to love and the acknowledgement of what we've carried collectively as women over millennia. And yeah, really just being able to be in circle with women to share actually our deepest truth and our pains and our sorrows, as well as our joy, because the womb is a place for joy and creativity, but historically it's where we push everything. It's where we just pretend it's all okay. Oh yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right. Put a smile on your face, carry on, push it down, push it down, push it down until it doesn't let you. Or if you've had a difficult journey with your womb, and maybe you've had a fertility journey or painful periods, heavy bleeding, again, like when you start to work with the energy of the womb, there's so much in it, there's so much depth in it of like why these things are appearing. And at this point in society, it's a very physiological way we deal with things. But when you start to really access the energy of the womb and the frequency of that space, there's so much more. It's not just a physical journey, it's the emotions and the psychological aspects that are sort of buried deep in there. So how do we start to delayer that to really get back to our core essence, our core truth, our empowered, sovereign, free woman?
You spoke about how you started unpicking these layers of yourself, and you had these impressions in you. How did you know that you were on you're diving into this, you're trying these things out? How did you know it started to benefit you? What were some of the symptoms?
I think that awareness of being more grounded and rooted in my body, because for me, my journey has been through many avenues, and my spiritual practice. And then I'd sort of raised kids on my own for many years. And I got to this point, probably about 46 years old, and I started to cry. And I was like, oh. And it was just this overwhelming sense of, something's not okay right now. Do you know, like, and it was, so my spiritual practice had always kind of taken me transcendent up. And it was this journey brought me in a way that I hadn't been in before. So that journey of raising kids on my own, I got to a place where I was like, I'm actually worn out. And suddenly I was realising the relationships that hadn't served me, the fact that I'd just put on a smile all the time, oh, it's all right, it's carry on. And then all of a sudden I got to a place like, it's not okay, there's something deeper in me trying to move. And that journey of actually coming into the body has brought up layers of pain, of sorrow, of grief, of shame, of the ancestral wound. So there's an aspect of spiritual healing where you can clear the etheric layers, but the embodiment of how to stay grounded and rooted in your body and how to access and be rooted in that space is an embodiment journey, and that's more somatic practice and the chanting and doing things. My mantras: drum, dance, sing and pray. They're the things that bring me back into my body, get me rooted, nature walks. And actually acknowledging at this point in time, if there's many of us that are here to be the generation breakers. So where it was silenced in my family, let's just put a smile on, let's pretend it's all right. It was like I suddenly got to a point where it's like, I can't pretend it's all right anymore. There's something deeper moving in me that needs expression, that needs to be released, that needs a voice. And actually to acknowledge what I'd been through and how much courage and determination I had, but now my body needs rest in a way that I hadn't really allowed it to rest for so many years. I'd kind of never struggled with my periods, so I breathed through every cycle. Yeah. Lived in this big summertime of my life. And when we start to tap into the cycle, and really tap into the cycle, it's there for a reason. And women, we are cyclical. So if you think about the seasons, so when I work with the medicine wheel through my shamanic practice, you've got east, west, north, south, but you can actually walk the medicine wheel of your menstrual cycle. So spring is just after bleed, so your hormones start to come up and you start to feel the energy, and then in the summer is your peak expression around ovulation, and then the hormones drop out, the progesterone rises, you go into the autumn phase, which is the premenstrual phase, before you go into your bleed, which is the winter. So if we think about that as women, and that happens monthly for us, how do we actually start to live cyclically, and how do we start to live with that? Because society has us on this 24/7, 365 days a year, push, produce, but actually when we start to drop in and honour our cycle, there's times of the month where things are going to feel easier and times of the month where things are going to feel more difficult. And it's like, if we can plan our projects, we're going to peak in our spring and summer, and autumn, winter, we're going to be going inward, and we're going to need to retreat a little bit, and we're going to need to shed and release and let go. So if we can be more conscious of that and start to do that more on a monthly basis, it doesn't build up so much when you get to the peak transitions and the rites of passage. So, even from that transition to becoming into motherhood, even from menarche into becoming a young woman, and then motherhood, there's all these big rites of passage that aren't really acknowledged in society. Indigenous cultures probably acknowledge them more, but we seem to have forgotten more in the West of what it is to honour these rites of passage and honour our journey as a woman and all that brings. So, yeah.
Wow.
Did that answer your question? I kind of went.
It just provoked more questions. Wow, I could just listen to that I could listen to you speak all day. That was amazing. Something that I was curious to get your perspective on is, how is not healing the mother line, the womb, affected society today? How do you see it affecting society?
I think maybe it's the acknowledgement. I don't know about not healing the mother line, it's having the awareness. Some families work really well and other families are fractured. And we're dissociating. If there's a mother wound, it's like when we get to the adult age, like, how are we mothering ourselves? So how did your mother talk to you? How was that relationship for you? And for me, I raised my kids as much as I could with unconditional love, and I never, obviously we've all got our flaws, right? But it was not through I'm so disappointed, on this, because it's the patterns that creates is then they don't learn to be able to be trusted by the mother to be the fullness of who they are. So I think it's just that awareness around, how do we speak, how as we get older do we speak to, how do we mother ourselves? Because ultimately we have to learn to do that for ourselves. We have to do our inner child healing. We have to be able to mother ourselves and nurture ourselves and give ourselves what we need. So then we're not having to outsource and find it from other people, because then you get into codependency and relationships that don't serve you. So it's this journey back to self. And then actually, when you think going back through the mother line, when I've done meditations, you can suddenly, if you spiral, if you think your grandmother, great-grandmother, all the way back to the beginning of time, we carry this huge amount of if you think about historically, women who didn't have expression, who were silenced or burnt or just had to perform, so it's just that awareness of wow, yeah, we carry this heavy, there's a weight of the feminine collective, but underneath that, there's resilience, there's strength, there's joy, there's sisterhood circle, there's sistership, there's support. There's actually a real beautiful support. So when we start to heal the mother line, all of that comes in, of just being able to trust in ourselves and trust in the women around us, and be able to ask for support and ask for help, and not feel like we've got to do it all alone, because that can be a pattern that plays out when you become fractured from the mother line. It's like, it's got to do it all on my own, and that's not the truth. And I think that's what we're trying to redress and rebalance now as we go into this new era. People just remembering what it is, but it's not all joy and love and light and unicorns and fairies. There's that element of the cycle, which is grief and letting go and acknowledging all of that is welcome, all of that is part of the whole. In the Messa, it's the Sami and the Hucha, the heavy and the light. It's the balancing opposites, it's the polarities that when you join them together and don't demonize one or the other, we actually get to live as whole beings. Because if we're trying to be in our body, not acknowledging the depth of some of the pain and the sorrow and the grief, we can spiritually bypass. So it's about acknowledging it all, being with it when it comes up, finding your way back to the joy and the sorrow, and acknowledge, we don't have to stay stuck there, but it's just the acknowledgement of yin and yang, dark and light, heavy, light, whatever you want to call it. It all exists, and it's all part of the whole. And how do we befriend that? And how do we make friends with that? And give it a voice, maybe write poetry, maybe sing, maybe sit in silence, but don't run from those deep, deep feelings. Because when you sit with them long enough, they can transmute and you can find your way back to the joy and the sorrow. But that's the dance of life between the two. So yeah.
That's amazing. I could hear you, honestly, every time I'm just like, oh my God, like my heart was like fluttering then. That was amazing, like goosebumps in my heart. Honestly, I just want you to just speak constantly.
But this is my lived experience, because I was that person that was like, yeah, unicorns, fairies, parties, yeah, high vibe. And where my journey took me was into the grief, into the sorrow. And that was really uncomfortable for me. And I tried to escape it, and I just did everything to try and escape it, but stillness, back to it. The bells are going now. Back to it, actually. Like, you can't bypass that, because that's part of the healing journey, is to be with it all and find your way through it and do whatever, and get the support you need to help you through that time. Because your mind, if you've had an illusion of what you think life is, it's like, whoa, actually, it can send you crazy to think, whoa. And actually, there's a more rooted whole me evolving, and I'm still evolving through that journey. It's not a done deal, you know. It's like it's always happening, because it's cyclical. And when you stop bleeding as a woman, all the energy that you've bled out now comes back inside. So it's then what you can do with the energy. How is that creation energy going to come through you? Because the traumas can come up and might not even be conscious, and that can have a visceral impact on the body. You know, if you suddenly, with hormones, whatever, there's anxiety or overwhelm. Again, that's not a failure, because that's the program that runs through the feminine collective. Failure, not enough, not good enough. You know, it's being tender and gentle and asking your body what it needs. So out of the mind into the heart, into the womb, of like, how do you soothe your body through those moments when there's anxiety or overwhelm? So yeah, it's a learnt experience to be in the body again.
For me, hearing about Reiki and healing and all of these things, coming from the background that I came from, was seen as a witch. You know, it's a witchy thing. It's demoniac. And I think as a society, there is this idea of, this is God's way, and anything that isn't this is like an exclusive route, and anything that isn't this route is demoniac. So when it comes, you spoke about the sisterhood and the witchhood before. So when it comes to, witches, what is a witch? Is it demoniac? Is it the path? Like, what's your understanding of that?
For me, when you talk about the witch wound, we're going back to the times where often the women would have been the midwives, the healers, the seers, the oracles, and then with that, the invasion of the church, they would have been the guardians of the communities, and they had the knowledge of the herbs, they had the knowledge of the land, they knew how to heal, how to restore balance, and they lived in connection and in balance with the earth. And then when the church came in, obviously that was demonized. That was like, you're satanic, you're this, you're that. And so we had the whole witch trials and the burnings and the stakes. And that's when the sisterhood came in, I think, as well, because women they could have to, dob another woman in so they didn't get killed themselves. So there's this deep fracture in that of where people were turned against each other because of the natural skills. And so for me, you've got this idea of witches wearing black hats and casting spells. And actually, you've always got a choice. The individual's always got a free will choice, because when you work with energy and intention, if you depend on what your intention is, you hear of black magic, you hear of obia, that you can create negativity from that magic. But if you've got the pure heart and you're working in alignment with source, in alignment with the earth, for me, a witch, you think of the cauldron and this and that, but it's like, for me, it's working in alignment with, I've never called myself a witch, but I work with the medicine bundle, I work with my practices, I work with sound, but actually it's about intention, and anyone has got the ability to tap into the dark or tap into the light. So it's really about purity of soul, intention, being grounded. And actually you can see there's lots of people that have their practices, and you have the lone witch or you have the coven witch, but actually it's a name, isn't it? It's a title. And there's so many avenues within that now, and there's so many healing modalities within that we see now. So people might not have the name of a witch, but you're still working with energy to help people align back to their centre, back to truth, back to their core, beyond the patterns, the limitations, the
materialism.
Yeah. So it's just finding a way. But they work with spells to create, hopefully, good. But heavy and light, you know, that Hoocher and Sammy were there before we existed, and they'll be there after we've gone. So it's up to each individual's consciousness what energy they work with. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Honestly, this has been amazing. I've had so much fun.
Nice,
It's
thank
probably
you.
one of my favourite talks, I think. This has been, honestly, I just feel like I've been healed. Thank you everybody for watching, and Hare Krishna, take care, God bless.